and welcome to the Sanctuary, a safe space to speak from the heart. I'm your host, Israel, and today I have the first time I'm talking to myself. My guest, Israel, the creator. Thanks for coming to the Sanctuary today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start with that name. So, how did the name Israel, the creator, come about?
Um, it's just my name is Israel, obviously, and I create. And then I couldn't have made it just the animator, or because I do a lot of things. I like to write comedy. I like to write. I write. I animate, and I do music every now and then.
Oh,
So I
I
felt
didn't know
like,
you do music.
yeah, a lot of people don't know, but you guys are getting something, one time or the other. So I, yeah, the best way to you know envelope everything I do was to just put the creator. So
Hmm.
I just called myself Israel the creator.
Yeah, let's talk
I think it's
about
a compliment.
music and with music touch the music in Orisha. How do you pick the
Yeah.
music? Where do you get the music from?
Okay. So I learned after the first two episodes to search for copyright free sounds, and I did say this. I wanted to say it while they were on. I forgot, but the sound, the voicing and the sound is almost as tasking as the animating. And I try to make sure I finish that within the next 24 to 48 hours of the animation. So the sound, it takes a lot of time. If I don't get exactly what I want to hear, I will try to create it. If I'm successful, I use it. If I don't, I'll get something as close to what I need. And then that takes a lot of time because I think I've gone through the entire YouTube music library. Like searching for because when I'm animating it, when I'm coming up with the scenes in my head, I have a kind of music that I want in the background and everything. And I remember there was this one scene where I was so lucky that Ogun, the character that plays Ogun, is a recording artist, and he has a song that fits it perfectly well. And I begged, let me use this song, let me use this song. And then eventually gave me the permission, and then I added that to it. So the other sounds I just took like copyright free songs. I had a couple of people who came on board and wanted to, work with me as sound engineer,
Hmm.
but I would have just been giving them a ridiculous window of time to come up with what I need. And
Hmm.
I just told them, they should just chill. When there's a budget or something or whatnot, we'll come together and make something out of it. So I used copyright free sounds, sound effects from YouTube, and sound requests effects that I try to create myself. I remember having Valerie, the girl that voices Ireti. I remember having her. I told her to, like put a handkerchief on her face while she was voicing one scene, just to get the feel I wanted. And
Hmm.
I think the person that went overboard enough was Ogun. So there was a scene where Ogun was being choked by Yemoja, and he sent me the voice, and it didn't sound like he was being choked, and I was like, bro, you're being choked. I don't know how you do it. Maybe you get somebody to choke the life out of you first. And he told me eventually had the sister like while the boys
Yeah.
and it came out incredible. So things like that. We try to create the sounds, we try to create the effects and all of that. Then, but YouTube has been a very big help.
Mm, mm. So let's rewind a bit. Before became this Israel the creator and have this great follow on Instagram. I'm working on
Yeah.
Orisha and all your other projects. How did you get into arts and animation and all this stuff?
Okay, so I think it all came from my love for superheroes. So as a child, one of the first things I remember ever loving was superheroes in cartoons. I just loved superheroes in cartoons. And then from there, the love grew. And I found myself studying the characters while I was watching. I
Mm,
would study these characters. I'll be watching every angle and, be fascinated by who came up with this. And when I study it, I will try to draw it. because I used to make paper caricatures out of the characters, and me and my brothers would play with them. And
Mm.
so I had to learn. I felt like I had to learn how to draw these characters. So when I'm watching a cartoon, I'll be studying them. I'll be watching them, and eventually, I started to have my what if, my what if moments. Like, what if Nigeria had a superhero? What if I was a superhero in Nigeria? And then I started writing my own stories,
Mm.
and I started writing my own comic books. And along the line, from writing my comic books, I would have one reader, which was my younger brother, Femi. So I remember one time when I was in secondary school, the name of my secondary school was Excel College. So I made a comic and I titled it X hyphen Hell, Hell. And the characters in the comic were my classmates.
Right.
Yeah. So everybody was invested.
Mm.
Nobody wanted to die. Everybody had an opinion on which powers their character should have. You know, and it was always very nice watching people say things like, "My character will kill your character tomorrow." No, everybody was excited to see what happens in the next episode. What happens
Mm.
in the, what's it going to be like? What's my powers? Why don't I have powers? Why did I die? And things like that. Because I think I'm very notorious for killing off characters. So along the line, drawing my comics and everything. So I never stopped drawing comics,
Mm.
and my mom had a bounty on my comic books. She literally came to class and said, I was like, if any teacher sees me drawing anything, was to rip it apart and beat the shit out of me. So I had that, and it made working in school difficult.
Mm.
And it made working at home too difficult because the only time I had to work at home was in the middle of the night. Now things have changed. They love my work now.
Right, 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 right. That was gonna be my next question. Like, how do they take it now? But you've already answered it.
Yeah.
So you
So
were making these comics. Like, when did you actually start animating them?
okay, so I didn't go digital until like 2017, 2018. Yeah, 2017, 2018, I started going digital. My mom bought me a graphics tablet. When she saw the interest, and she came to me one day and she was like, "What do you need to make this thing the best it can be, since you've refused to stop?" So I told her I would need a laptop and a graphics tablet.
Mm.
And I think she got it within that week. And then she was like, "Enjoy yourself." And then I went digital. I started to make, and I didn't start animating immediately. I started to do graphic design, illustrations. That was how I got by. And in 2019, I decided, it has always been at the back of my mind you. It has always been on my mind. I was going to be an animator. I've known this like since the first time I picked up a pen to draw.
Mm.
It was just when the right time is to start this thing, because I knew how much time it would take, and I knew how much I would have to turn down jobs, turn down commissions, just to keep going at this thing and keep
Mm.
doing the best I can. So I stopped. I stopped taking jobs. I decided in 2019, okay, I was going to become an animator, and then the pandemic hit. And then when the pandemic hit, I didn't have to turn down my job. My job was like on pause, and everybody was at home. And I felt like that was the perfect time. So I started, and I didn't start. I didn't go through the conventional learning process.
Mm.
What I did was I animated something, and I started working on as an animator immediately. I just started making music visualizers, doing animated content for people, and luckily there were some people that already loved my comics and some works I've done before.
Mm.
I have a comic that I think was even bigger than this Orisha, but it was not an animation. That's why it's not mainstream. The name of the
Right.
comic is Auto Crash, and a lot of people are asking me to start the animated series of Auto Crash. I
What's
would
Auto
send
Crash
you.
about?
It's a comic about a guy who was summoned to a parallel universe to save them. Like just a regular guy
Mm.
who had to go to a parallel universe to save them, somewhere where a war he has nothing to do with, a war he has no idea about. The only reason is important is his parallel version in their universe created a weapon that only his DNA could activate.
Oh.
And like he created it uniquely to himself.
Mm.
And there was this question that ran through the show because people were like, there's an infinite number of parallel universes. Why was this character so important? And I told them that the reason why that guy was so important was he was entirely useless to the timeline. That means plucking him out of his timeline
Doesn't
made
affect
it had
anything.
no effect. There was no, and that was just my way of letting you know that sometimes even what makes you useless is also what makes you unique. What makes other people feel like this person is not important. It's what makes you
Mm.
unique in another place. You just have to be in the right place. He's useless in his timeline, but in another timeline is
It's a
their
hero.
Jesus.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
yeah.
that comic and that comic came out around the time Stan Lee passed away. So I
Mm.
had a little, that was where I learned to put Easter eggs in my work. And I feel like I'll
What
send you
is
the
that?
comic, and I feel like you will enjoy it. Easter eggs, like
Oh, Easter
background
eggs. Gotcha,
information.
gotcha,
There
gotcha,
was
gotcha.
there was a page. There was a page. There was a page where the extras became the main characters, and the main characters became the extras. And
Oh.
that page just happened and just passed. And I did it for me, but then when that episode dropped, everybody was like, "Bring those characters back," and then I had to put out a disclaimer. I had to put out a disclaimer to let them know that, you see, if I put them at the forefront, it defeats the entire idea. You
Mm.
get, they have to stay extras. And then I made an homage to them in like two episodes towards the end, and I had them explain that themselves. Yeah, and that episode passed. So there's still going to be an animated version of Autocrash. So that was the comic that I used to hone my skills as an illustrator. That was why I found out that if you leave me to try and learn something, I may not necessarily do it until I have a project I'm working on, and then I'll find myself getting better and better and better at it. So I started to animate during the pandemic. I started doing jobs. I started working as an animator, and then the very next year, I decided, yes, it's time to make my own animated series.
Mm. Why did you
And
decide to
lucky
go
for
with
me,
Urisha and not Auto Crash? Because Auto Crash already had a audience.
yes, yeah. I think that has to do with what I was more excited about at the moment. I felt like I felt like Auto Crash was not. It didn't have enough of our culture in
Mm.
it, and I didn't know how big what I did was going to get. But I just felt deep in my heart that um, in case it gets really really big, I want it to go big based on something that is close to the culture, close to home,
Mm.
about the old Nigeria um, you know, background and all of that. So I decided, let my first big project be Orisha. Let it be. That's why I gave it a Yoruba name, because even then, most of my readers and my fans were not Nigerians. Many of them were not Yoruba people, but I felt like they would have to learn it. They would have to ask questions about these things. I think the third episode, I made sure we voiced and we acted it in Yoruba. The first scene, I made sure we acted it in Yoruba
Mm.
so that because I now realized I started having some Ghanaian followers, some Ghanaian fans, Togolese, and things like that. So I was like, yeah, let them hear our language. Yeah, I put the subtitle for them to read, but let them hear the Yoruba and
Mm.
understand that this culture is really beautiful, and these are things that that could have been. Yeah, because you find out that you watch the Americans, and other countries, when they make versions of our work, you hardly hear our language in it.
I
You
agree.
hear us speaking English, and I'm like, nah, we don't speak English that much like that.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Like,
Uh,
yeah, when you are showing our history, if you are showing historical moments and they are speaking English, I just know you are bullshitting.
yeah, you're kind of pulling the people out of the experience, and I think that's what
Yeah.
also caught me about Risha, because like I grew up in like Yoruba in the Yoruba community, and I was always fascinated about these stories. And in my mind, I'm like, how can't like because it's wild these stories, right? And
Yeah.
and you hear about these stories and it's like, man, it would be great if it could be seen on the screen. So once I saw, I was like hooked, and watching it, I'm like, okay, how much work goes into each episode?
A lot. And I was working a 9 to 5 when I was doing Orisha. So I animate at work and I animate at home. The worst part of the day is being on the road. I think till date I hate being on the road because I feel like it just it's just time I'm not spending doing what I have to do. So yeah, a lot of work goes into each episode, animating, and I'm doing all of it alone and it's on my iPad. So there are a
Wow.
lot of effects that have to be done manually, like parallaxing, camera movements, and all of that. I have to animate it frame by fucking frame.
Yeah.
So a lot of work goes into that, and there are a lot of things. It helps you to be resourceful. There are a lot of tricks I learned to pull off with the app, and I found different ways to achieve because I'm the kind of person that if I have a kind of visual I want to achieve,
Mm.
I don't care how long, even if it takes, if the whole animation takes, yeah, the whole animation takes 2 weeks,
Mm.
and that particular scene takes 3 weeks, I will spend that time doing it. And I try to make sure, each episode was better than the last, graphics wise. I try my best to achieve that. So a lot of work goes into each episode. All my heart goes into each episode. And I
No,
like people to believe that whatever I put out that time was the very best I could have done.
that approach is amazing, and it also shows in the work itself. Now let's talk about the characters, because you can have all these amazing animation, amazing stories, but if the people, the voice actors, don't bring those characters to life, it doesn't
Life.
really come across. How did you cast
Yeah.
them? How did you work on the voice part?
Okay, so when I was casting, I
Mm,
didn't have the privilege of getting professional voice actors and all of that. So for me it was mostly who wants to come on board.
mm,
I felt like this is my honest thinking. I feel like anybody can voice act if they have good direction, like if they have the right direction, and if you as the director know how to use them. So
mm,
I was like, who wants to come on board? The people that I handpicked myself that I knew felt like this one's must voice for me were Valerie and Bolade. That's Ireti and Oya.
mm-hmm,
Those two, I had made up my mind that these guys were voicing even before I started the animation. And every other person was just like Beaver was from Twitter. Some other people DM'd me and were like, "Yo, I saw you animate. If you ever need a voice actor, let me know." And I
mm,
keep that somewhere. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll catch that in soon." And and they were amazing. And then my friend Jide, who you saw,
mm.
like I said, we go way back. So when I needed Oromila and Anifa Priest, it wasn't a tough decision. Like everything in my blood and in my body was like, this is the person that will do this thing. It
Mm,
would it would kill it. It won't stress you. And then they were not perfect when we started. They were not. In fact, I think we are all still growing because that was my first experience to voice acting.
mhm,
So when we do the takes, I'll be like, okay, this is what I'm going for.
mm.
And many times I voice the characters, all of them, to let them know
What you
what
need.
I want to share, what I'm really going for, like
Right.
anger. And I love how they interpret, because sometimes I feel like, my direction, I'm just saying nonsense. Like I could say, I want you to be angry, but with a touch of concern. And then after I finish saying it, did I make any sense? But that's it. I'm just lucky. I have people that understand me, without having to, go on this long epistle. And
Mm,
then when I say it, and they send back what I give, and I'm like, yeah, this is exactly this is what I didn't know I needed, you
mm,
know. And I'm like, and I'm telling, oh yeah, you're a mother. So just show concern and then just go crazy with it. And they're like, okay. And then she gives me what I want, and I'm like, yeah, yes, this is it. And if they give me what I don't want, I'll be like, mm-mm,
You know,
mm-mm.
it's
It
unique
doesn't.
that, and a very good thing that you know what you want. So when you hear it, you just know
Yeah,
that that's exactly it. And if you don't, you
that's
know
exactly.
how to get what you want. Because, like, when you watch the Orisha, and I'm going to put the link on the below, when you watch this series, you just want to see the next one. And then when it ends, it's like, oh my God, when is the next one coming? So, what is the process for the next season now?
Yeah, the process for the next season is we are in a stage where we are looking to see if we can get like a budget or something before we start.
Mm,
And but it's not going to stop us. If that doesn't happen, we will finance by ourselves.
mm,
And the story is complete. If you are worried about that, the story is complete. The whole thing has been drafted, and it's just now a matter of animating it, voicing it, and getting the right feels and everything, and it's going to be incredible.
mm,
And there are a couple of ideas for how to roll out the next season. So there's either three 8 minutes episodes, or a couple of 5 minutes episodes. Just we don't want to do it as short as the last one was. That's 2 2 2 minutes. We want to do something that won't take more than like 3 episodes. Then each one will be longer than the average episode,
mm,
because the story is not really so long from here.
mm.
And then there's a spin-off in mind that I plan to put out. There's an entire universe I plan to create.
Spin off
If you
on what
notice, I
character?
introduced on Yemoja.
Oh.
Yeah. I've always struggled in all my time of writing stories and all of that. I've always struggled with having a female lead led story.
Mm,
I always feel like I can't, really connect to the character. I can't relate. And I think that was just a fear I had on misrepresenting,
mm,
women in this story. And then once I started Urisha, and people's favorite character was Ireti.
mm,
And I knew how much I love animating Ireti. I love telling her story. And you'll find out that if you watch the show, she's the only person that really has an episode dedicated to our origin
mm,
and all of that. And it made me really love working. And I decided, yes, let my spin off be based on Yemoja, because I have a very beautiful story I want to tell based on the characters. Also, I wanted to point out that I've introduced some, I use that to introduce the all those normal Yoruba monsters we used to know, Egungun,
mm.
Abiku, and Mami Water, and all those things. And funny enough, she's the one that fought all of them.
It's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Corey,
yeah, yeah.
Corey fought Egungun in the first episode. Then she fought Abiku and Mami Water,
Yeah.
and then she's tasked with fighting all of
You
them.
know, so
I she was
I had to cut that because, like, when you mentioned the Mazmi
yeah.
Water, I remember watching it and thinking, like, this is kind of a different view angle on the Mami Water thing, you know? Why did you take it that route?
Okay, so I the first thing I thought was, in the Yoruba mythology we have all these monsters, you know, and I was like, what's a lazy way of giving all these monsters the same origin story? Because like, how did these monsters come to be? And I felt like that episode dedicated to Ireti was a perfect way to do it. The priest fucked up, messed up his spell, and unleashed all these monsters. And there's been a shadow war between Orisha, between Ireti and these monsters, going on for ages,
Mm,
and she has been taking them out. So that's why it kind of explains why a couple of people will say we've seen these things, and a couple of people say they don't exist. That's
mm.
because Ireti is behind the shadows,
Taking care of them.
knocking them off the table one by one. And I had a whole Ireti versus Madame Coin sequence,
You know? It's like,
and I tried to put it in the episode, but then she was going to fight Mami Water later on in that episode,
mm,
and I felt it didn't feel right.
mm,
I still don't have an explanation for it, except for it didn't feel right. So I cut out the Madame Koi
mhm.
sequence and I left it out. But I feel like I feel like I'll just throw that story in for no reason. I feel like Madame Koi could be, she has the potential to be like a series long villain.
Mm,
And I was
mm,
like, yeah,
mm.
let's leave that for now and let it come, let it come later.
Mm,
And even in the, I wish I could send you a picture of it. Even in the this thing, because back then when I used to hear the Madame Koi story, it was in this school called Queen's College, and in the animation it was in Queen's College she attacked, and Ireti had to do the needful. And then there's still a lot to go into about Ireti, because there's a whole training process,
mm,
why arrows can take out monsters like Abiku and Mami Water,
mm,
and things like that. And then we'll get into that. And then Fred Fred was an amazing. Then the guy that voices Fred, DX, is a professional actor
mm,
that happens to be a close friend of mine. And I remember he has two monologues in the show. One where he was giving a speech at the National Theatre, and then one where he was telling the backstory of Corey and Odudua. And I remember thinking, I know exactly what I want for that backstory.
mm,
She get so I didn't want to say it, but I felt like we're going to have to do it 100 times. So I prepared his mind
mm,
that we are going to do this thing as many times as it takes. We did it once.
mm.
He did it the first time. I heard it and I was like, I don't want to hear any other thing. this is this is what I want, and this is what I'm keeping. And he tried a couple of other things, and I told him, "Sis, don't waste your time. That first thing we did is just the best,"
Mm.
and that was what we had. And sometimes it happens like that. Their first take could just be magnificent.
Whoa, okay. So, the thing that actually also pulled me into your world was the Niger John Wick story on your Instagram. How did your Instagram began, and then what is the background behind this John Wick story?
Okay, so it didn't start with Instagram, because my Instagram was it wasn't I didn't have followers, and it was very low performing and all of that. And I was tired of spending money on ads for Orisha content, trying to get the word out. So I
Mm,
decided to try and go viral. And one of the best platforms for that seemed to be TikTok. So I started creating TikTok content. Then I didn't really call myself a content creator, but when I started creating content for TikTok, I was like, okay, let's see what we can do to go viral. So I tried a couple of things. I tried to animate popular TikTokers. I tried to do animated transitions, and then all of a sudden I did something relatable, about how expensive it is living in Lagos, and everybody just ate it up. And I found out that people thought that was funny. And when I realized people thought that was funny, I said, okay, let's try write more funny content. And
mm,
it started doing well, and then about 150K followers on TikTok, and then those that content started to go viral on Instagram too, and then they started to go viral on Twitter. So that's how I was able to gather, the followers, the small followers I have now, and
mm.
they liked the content for what it is, and I was like, okay. And then a few of the followers went and checked out Orisha, and were like, bro, when is the second season coming? And another thing we did was some boys came out, and their content was based on telling ridiculous lies. And I found out that these lies happen to be action sequences that all guys have thought of in their head, you know. Or you'll be in a bus one day and you'll be thinking, what if Amroba just attacked this boss and they shoot bullets, and I dodge everything, and I start fighting all the Arabas. And these guys were saying it. So I was like, why not animate it? And that was how the John Wick trilogy
The
started.
story is
So the first one,
insane.
and I decided, because telling the story is one thing,
Mm,
when you see it, it's another thing. And
mm.
I think the Mommy Geo content taught me that, because I felt like it wasn't funny enough to just hear what these people are saying. Let me animate it so you see how ridiculous it is in its entirety. So I animated the first one. It did really well. And in my time creating content, I like to do when I create a content, I like to do like a series of three for each version of the content.
Mm.
I did superheroes in Nigeria. I did about four contents based on it. And when I did the Mommy Geo one, I did like two. And when I did the John Wick one, I did like three. And that John Wick one was the first time that the second installment will perform better than the first.
I mean, the story
Because
is
those lights were
insane, and he's like got 80 bullets were shooting at him, and one hit his head,
nothing.
and oh wait, he bounced off him. Like
Yeah,
what?
nothing. I was like, what? One said he jumped out of the car and then he went so high that God just helped him that a plane happened to be moving at the time. I was listening to it. I was like, what?
Oh man, yeah, you know what? I'm really enjoying this chat. So I'm gonna well, okay, before I let you go though, I'll ask this. Now, you build this
Okay.
community and you're enjoying creating, you're still building, working on season 2 coming up soon. What is the big plan?
Okay. So the big plan would be to have the Orisha universe. Because this is Orisha Prince Corey, there's going to be Orisha Yemoja, there's going to be Orisha and all other things. So to have the Orisha universe and its spin-offs on major streaming platforms, and to be able to make a feature film
Mm.
based on any new ideas or anything I come up with. And then the big dream, the big dream would be to have other animators just look at it and be like, we can do this. This came out of our country. This came out of what we can do, and we can definitely do this. I get some DMs, that about oh my god, I love your work. It inspired me to do this, and then they'll send their animations, and I'll see it, and I'll be like, yeah, that was how I saw some other people's work,
Mm.
and I was inspired to do this. The only difference is the person I looked up to was from outside the country. It would be nice to give you somebody to look up to that looks like you,
Mm.
that comes from your
Mm.
background, and that made it work, and then you see that, yeah, you can do this thing as well. And I think that was one of the things that keep pushing me to do what's better than the last
Mm.
thing.
These guys, as
Like,
if you're
yeah, let's
inside
this
my
thing.
head because you have seen my last question now, but I'll still ask you though. So, like, I want to let you go with this question. With all these things you've created and the people that you're now kind of inspiring, there's a kid there goes through your Instagram, goes through Orisha, and he's like, okay, I see this thing. What like what of advice would you share with that person?
My advice would be, um work with what you have. Don't think anything is too small. If you have a pen and a paper, you can animate with it. Nothing can stop you. If you want to work with what you have, put out your content. Don't wait for people to come and ask, do you draw,
Mm.
or can you do this? Talk about yourself, put your content out, upload it. Social media is one of our biggest weapons when it comes to creating content, and it's so beautiful now that you don't need promotion as much as you used to, because things like the Instagram Reels and the TikTok algorithm are just pushing content for pushing sake,
Mm.
and you never know. So create content, put it down at any point in time when anybody asks of you. As long as you call yourself an animator, make sure you have things you are proud of to show, to showcase, and to put out, and just keep going. That's it.
Man, yo, thanks so much. I can't wait for season 2 of Orisha. And I just want to say thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing your journey and creating all the amazing things you do. And I also want to say thank you for coming to the sanctuary today.
Thank you very much for having me. This has been so much fun.